show called This You May Ask, so I'll tell you. The accepted meaning of angel is messenger, and the accepted meaning of destiny is to make firm establish. So my guests and I bring you messages to establish what you need to know in the present. And also, I like working with angels and the calmness they bring. Now, in a moment, I will introduce you to my wonderful guest, Donna Riley. But before that, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching the show live at a later date, as it means a lot to me to connect with like-minded women. Now, if you've never met me before, then my name is Ray, and I love to help women to crossroads in their life, heal their past, create their future, and transform their present so they can take charge of their destiny in the here and now. I'm the founder of Radiant Angel Energy, and I use future life progression, past life regression, angelic Reiki, guided meditation, angel oracle cards, and hypnosis to help women who feel lost get clear on their reason for being here. And I've also created a transformational journey to help you take charge of your destiny and a journey through lifetimes. Now, each episode of the show will cover various themes of your journey, a mini guided meditation or angel card reading, with the wisdom of my wonderful guests, like today's guest, Donna Riley, who will be sharing how you can create heaven on earth. Now, Donna Riley is a gifted intuitive movement teacher, a Reiki Energy Master, and best-selling author. She is passionately devoted to her purpose of awakening, inspiring, and empowering women to alchemize their pain into pleasure. Now, this is a deeply personal mission for Donna because after having a near-death experience at the age of 12, she's spent the rest of her life learning how to be fully embodied and create heaven on earth. For the past 30 years, Donna has been studying and practicing movement, personal development, energy medicine, breathwork, and other healing modalities. In her programs and private sessions, Donna is divinely guided to facilitate experiences where the client learns to listen to the divine intelligence that lives within, move with grace and fire, and create an orgasmic life. With testimonials such as, Donna is amazing. She knows how to move you past your boundaries to promote empowerment. Trust in her energy. She will show you many things about yourself and how to move beyond your comfort zone so you can truly move into your own. And wow, this is so incredible. Movement is vital to a state of health. I love this. So without further delay, hello, Donna, and welcome to the Angels and Destiny Show. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Oh, didn't turn that down. So before we get into this fascinating conversation, I want to remind you that you can also ask questions, leave comments and thoughts, as both Donna and I want to be part of this show. So please do not be shy. So Donna, why don't you tell us more about your journey and how we can create heaven on earth?
Yes. Well, as mentioned in my bio, a big piece to my story is that I had a near-death experience at the age of 12. And the interesting thing is that I did not tell anybody for 35 years.
Wow.
So that created quite a lot of interesting things in my life. But to sort of fast forward to how that evolved, when I was 47, I took a 4-day meditation course. And all I saw was darkness, really intense darkness, war, murder, fire, chaos, complete mayhem. And everybody else was blissing out. And I was so confused, as you can imagine. And I went to the teacher and said, I don't know what is happening to me, but I'm only seeing darkness. And she didn't know how to help me. And on the final day, I all of a sudden saw the light from my near-death experience overcome all that dark. And I realized, oh, wow, like I'm being shown the extremes of light and dark in this one vision, and it's clearly coming up to do some healing around my NDE, which I wasn't even aware I needed healing around it. It just intuitively, I knew, oh, that's why this is coming up. So then the next day, I started to have what I call an energetic meltdown. So I started to vibrate. I could hardly eat. I felt like I was drunk, super spacey. And there happened to be, I was teaching at a studio at the time, and there happened to be a healer who was a friend of the owner who was in from out of town. And she took one look at me and she said, you need to come see me. And I was so out of it. I just was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And the second day she said, Donna, you really need to come see me. I can help you. And I was like, I don't know if I can afford it, whatever. Like I was really resisting. I'm like, who is this woman? Like, what? So the third day, she grabbed my hands and she pulled me into her and said, I can handle you. Come see me. And that really got to me because I had done a lot of personal development work, and I'm a very passionate woman. And when my stuff comes up, it comes up. So the fact that she said, I can handle you, I thought, all right, what the hell? She's ready for whatever like is about to happen, right? Because I have no idea what's going on. So I went to go see her and she said, what is going on? I told her about the course. And I said, I think this has to do with my near-death experience that I had when I was young. And I don't know why it's coming up, but it's clearly coming up. So she took me through her process with some energy work, some body work, just meditation, like a whole sort of little process. And she said, tell me exactly what happened. So I told her the whole story of the near-death experience. And understand, I'm laying on the massage table, completely zenned out and relaxed. And all of a sudden I say, and I came back in my body, I jump up off this table, and in this demonic, crazy voice, I say, and I was pissed. And I let, oh, wow, I've been angry since I was 12 years old that I'm on the planet. And all of a sudden my whole life started to like flash before me, and everything started to come together and make sense. Like, because I never really understood anybody, like, and I never related to anybody. I didn't even get people. I didn't get this whole thing of being here on this planet. Like, but I didn't really know that's what I was experiencing or why I was feeling that way, because I hadn't processed or talked to anybody about my experience. So I was just kind of living in my own little, literally my own little planet for up until that point. So when my life started to flash in front of me and it started to make sense, I was like, oh, wow. Well, she looks at me and says, here's the deal. I've had one too. And once you've had that experience, you have enormous perspective on things. And you understand that all of this is, I don't know if I can swear, but BS,
yeah.
Right? This is all what this walking around three-dimensional reality is, a bunch of BS. And I just started bawling hysterically because I was like, finally somebody gets me. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, it was finally somebody that spoke truth. That was my truth that I couldn't articulate because I hadn't processed my experience. And then she said, and you probably feel like nobody gets it. Well, then I cried even harder because my mantra my whole life was, nobody gets it. I had a constant low grade level of anger. And every time someone would say to me, Donna, why are you angry? What are you frustrated about? What's the matter? I would say, nobody gets it. But again, I hadn't processed my experience. So I didn't know that it was the contrast between pure love and light that I went to and this three-dimensional stuff that we're living in. So now everything started to make sense, like complete sense to me. Well, then it became, okay, now what do I do? I went into deep grief because I realized I literally have not been living for 35 years. I never once thought about what I wanted, what made me happy, what made me feel good. I never desired to connect with another human being. I didn't date. I spent most of my life like going to work, doing a great job teaching and being amazing as a teacher, but like that's all I cared about. I didn't want to connect with the humans or do anything that people would see as pleasurable or enjoyable. I was just buying time, basically. Now, the interesting thing about that, the grieving period for me is it became this whole sort of life review. You know, like as I looked back on my life, it was like, whoa, I have missed out on a lot. I mean, this, even just the dating concept, like I never dated. And here I was now 48, 49 years old. And I'm like, I've never dated. So what I started to realize is, wow, I'm still kind of 12 years old emotionally, you know, because I just got by in life, you know? So it was an interesting thing. Well, soon after that, this woman that I met in the gym of all places told me she was making a movie on death and interviewing people who've had near-death experiences. And she said, would you like to be in my documentary? I was like, sure, why not? Well, this was the first time I had talked about it publicly. And one of the questions she asked me was, what would you say to comfort somebody who's losing a loved one? Well, I just start crying. because I realized, oh my gosh, I could have been comforting people all these years. I could have been offering some level of insight or comfort, or I don't know what, I don't know, what I'm trying to say, like comfort, I guess is the only word I could say. And that really was devastating to me. And I was so confused. Anyway, so a couple of the key factors that started to occur, I started to just kind of live my life. And then in the past year or so, I had a dear friend who does a lot of work with people with trauma and a lot of brain rehabilitation kind of stuff. And anyway, she said to me, Donna, you're still behaving in many ways as a PTSD person, from the trauma of your NDE. And I said, what are you talking about, the trauma of my NDE? It was the most beautiful experience of my life. Like, what are you talking about, trauma? And she explained to me that it was the trauma was not telling anybody and not processing my experience fully at the time. Well, I started to look into trauma and I realized, whoa, she's right. I have been doing the fight, flight, or freeze thing my whole life. Like I then started to realize I've actually been outside of my body most of my life. And when anything was challenging to me or scary or I couldn't understand it, I would just leave.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just check out and leave, or I would hide, right? And I looked back and I was like, God, there's even situations with men where they were, I mean, I wasn't sexually abused, but, like men being like touching me inappropriately or saying or doing something inappropriate. I would just giggle. Like, I didn't know how to, and now I realize it's because I was leaving. You know what I mean? I wasn't present in my body. I didn't know how to, and I still had that childlike quality of the 12-year-old that would be shocked. Like, what are you doing? Like, I don't understand, right? Like, it was very confusing to me. So the most significant thing in terms of and I'll get into like the whole heaven and earth thing that happened over the past year is when I started to look into this trauma concept, I realized, wow, I still have a lot of healing to do around this. And I went to a manifestation kind of weekend conference, and there was this woman up on stage speaking, and she starts talking about having an NDE at the age of 14, so I'm 13, so a year older than I was, and how her whole life she was get to a certain place and she would sabotage herself, or she would try to connect with somebody, but then she really could never really find depth and connection. And she basically started telling my story on stage. And when she was done, I just was hysterical crying. And I went up to her and I said, I'm just realizing, like, your story is my story. And I'm just realizing I have some healing to do around this. And this is all new to me. I can't even believe I wasn't even aware of this. And anyways, once that was in January. And then in March was my big coming to earth moment, which was, so part of my work I do is I do some of the body work that I do is I do a lot of fascia release work. And so I was doing some self-practice, knowing that I wanted to do some more healing around this through my body. So I was working on my psoas, which everybody knows is quite the place to work on in terms of holding a lot in the body. And all of a sudden, I'm laying on the mat, I have the ball, and I'm breathing, and I have music in the background. And all of a sudden, my little girl, my little 12-year-old showed up. And she kind of was just like standing right next to me. And I just started crying, like, wow, what are you doing here? And what's going on? And then she started going to the light and going like this and coming back and going like this. And she did that several times. And I realized, oh, wow, she is reclaiming the parts of myself that I left behind. And I started to feel this true embodiment. I mean, all of a sudden I felt, the way that I explained it is I started to feel more solid.
Yeah.
Like I'm more obviously grounded, but I mean, literally like physically more solid. And all of a sudden there was music in the background. I sprout angel wings. She sprouts angel wings. I stand up and we start dancing together. And I grew up as a dancer and majored in dance in college. So in that moment, I was dancing in a way that I did when I was a child, which is that just completely carefree, easy, fluid, expressive, divine essence quality in ourselves. And we just started dancing. We would go out to the ethers and then we would come back. And when the whole experience finished, I literally went, oh, this is what it feels like to be here. This is, oh my gosh, I'm here. And I wasn't even clear before that I wasn't fully here until my friends started to introduce it. So the whole heaven and earth thing for me, and through my journey and working with tons of healers over the years, and just my own personal practice of trying to stay present in my body, is I think about the emotional aspect to life. And in my witnessing of humanity over the past several years, especially as I work with bodies, and I'm, my gift that I feel I got from my NDE, because I have so much perspective, is when I watch a body move, I can tell you so much about who they are. And I'm very aware in any given moment, is it a physical problem, an emotional problem, a spiritual, or a mental? Not that you can make it just one, but what is the doorway? Like, what is the sort of missing piece for this person? And in my experience, the missing piece for most people is the emotional world. And the emotional world is the world of pleasure and satisfaction and joy and self-esteem and self-worth, and obviously our feelings, our essence, our heart, right? Like what makes us feel good. Most people I witness are moving mechanically, right? They're using their body in such a way that's very mechanical. 10 of these, 5 of these, my so-and-so told me to do this technique is what I do, right? And they're doing movement and they're not being movement. And for me, being is about experiencing, and it's about being present and being aware and feeling into. So when I work with the body, I'm always going into the aspect of what feels good. I always joke and say, look for the juicy bits. Like, where's the little juicy, yummy little moments, right? And those are the moments that, ironically, what people finally start to understand is that's the moment of the breakthrough. Right? It's not about the pushing through and the doing more and the whatever. It's about staying in that present moment. And my brand is called Orgasmic Movement because of this, because I want people to get into that emotional aspect of their experience. And to me, that's the true heaven on earth aspect. Like when we're really finding those little moments of bliss and awe and experience things more fully, right? Like really having a moment where you're just in awe and fascinated by what your body's capable of. And then going so deep into that experience that you have this incredible insight about either yourself or a memory that all of a sudden brings you joy, or a memory that leaves your body as you go deeper into releasing and opening up and letting the whole experience come fully into your state in that moment. So that's been my journey, is like, how do I, and actually I came up with that phrase just because I had a healer say that to me after I kind of did some work around this healing. They were like, look, you're here. So you got to accept it, first of all. So you might as well create heaven on earth.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of acceptance. I mean, I still, honestly, I'm fully embodied now, and the irony is, it's been interesting because, my full embodiment, and the trauma woman that I worked with said I had my own soul retrieval experience. That happened in the beginning of March, right before COVID. And I was like, wow, this is so divine. Like, I spent my whole life afraid of the world. Like, I just didn't understand people. I don't understand violence and hate. Like, I can't even process that. Like, I truly don't understand, which is why I had a hard time being here all these years. And now the world actually is kind of scary, right? There's a lot of legitimate things that people are afraid of. And now is when Spirit chose for me to like fully be here.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm just aware, well, that's because I need to share. I can support and help other people through my journey and my experience. Right. So now is the time.
Yeah.
Now is the time to do that.
And Graham has asked the question. Hello, Graham. Thank you for joining the show. Being a guy and into spiritualistic lifestyle, do you think, Donna Riley, that this also applies to men?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The reason why I specialize working with women is just because my personal journey is so related to, I had 3 brothers and no sisters. a very misogynistic father. And a lot of my journey also has been going deeper into my own feminine essence, and really kind of going into that balance of how do I express my divine essence, how do I truly be in the flow and the creativity as is the feminine, but then also stay in the strength, power, and action oriented aspect of my masculine, right? So when I was in the anger part of my life, when I was, not really fully embodied, I had a ton of masculine energy. Everything was just about push through and like make it happen, and that's what made my dad proud, So as I have gotten to this place now where I'm sort of developing my personal brand, I'm aware that where I can offer the most is through helping other women, because that's been my personal journey. I do have some male clients, but I just, like, when I work with my programs, my group programs, I really try to just work with women, because like I said, I really want to help them, because that's the other thing too. A lot of women can relate to what I'm talking about in terms of operating too much from their masculine, right? And like not knowing how to get in touch with that other aspect of themselves. They're more of their divine feminine essence. Yeah.
And
thanks for the question, Graham.
And Graham says, I have 5 sisters and 2 brothers. So I'm
the only wow. Opposite.
Yeah. It's amazing in families, actually, how sometimes it is just the one person from the siblings that actually is involved on a spiritual life.
I knew at a very young age. I mean, I remember I grew up in the Catholic Church, and I remember being 5 years old and questioning everything. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Why do you have to go into this building, connect with God? Why can't women be priests? Why? And so I was always aware that I was very different. And looking back now, and my spiritual mentor and teacher, the one who helped me realize I was angry for being here, we talk about that my soul was ready to go. Like at 12, I was like, you know what? Peace out, people. I'm ready to check out. This is cool with me. And during the actual experience of my NDE, I was so cool. Like I was like, peace out, people. This is awesome. My mom was standing at the edge of the hospital bed, terrified. And I was like, no, Mom, it's cool. Like, no, this is good. Like, I was so ready. And then I had to come back.
Oh, yeah. So were you disappointed at the time that you had to come back?
No, like I said, I couldn't process that. I don't. It's interesting, because the woman who interviewed me for the documentary, she said, why don't you think you ever told anybody? And now understand, I had never talked about it up until this moment. So my answer was truly like my truth, right? And what flowed out of me was because I didn't think I was emotionally mature enough to handle the responsibility. So there was something in my psyche that knew that this experience came with responsibility.
Yeah.
And until I had matured and processed fully, then, you know what I mean? I couldn't really be helpful to others. I couldn't really do anything with it, So, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So Graham says, I hope in time a lot more men will get in tune with their emotional aspects.
It's so interesting, Graham, that you say that, because I actually had to see, look at that, we're vibing already. I actually had the thought the other day, it just kind of dropped into me, get your programs with women going, and then do some programs just with men, right? From that same perspective, helping the male tap into the feminine. And, the other interesting thing too, as you say that, again, I go through the body as my main modality. I cannot even tell you how many men I see that are just, over the years, so their bodies are just so messed up. And it's because they operate too much for the masculine, right? Where they're just hardcore, push through everything, force everything, overdo everything, and their body just falls apart, So there is a lot of value. There would be a lot of value. Maybe I'll do that someday.
Well, if you do, Graham says he would love to assist, and apparently he's from Derby as well.
Oh, cool.
And And Carla has said, which I'm sure a lot of people will probably resonate with this one. After the near-death experience, why did you have PTSD? I'm not understanding. And I suppose that's because a lot of people, with what you read on the mainstream, it's like, I had this wonderful experience, and then I came back, and it was absolutely wonderful. Where obviously in your case, that wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, so two things with that. One is, one of the healers that I worked with, when she asked me where I came back, when I came back into my body, I came back through my solar plexus. And she said, you're supposed to come back through your heart. So I've had some energy work over the years, a couple things. One is, I had some tears in my energy field around my heart that needed to be healing. And that was part of the reason why I was feeling sort of traumatized or angry about it. But I just lost my train of thought. What was the other thing? Oh, the fact that I didn't want to come back. Like that was like coming back when I didn't want to was what created, and then not telling anybody for years and holding on to that and holding on to the anger. And also I was told that I came back too fast. And that was like a traumatic thing too, where it was like shocking to be back in my body again. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but it was, that's why it was confusing to me too. When my friend said, Donna, you're operating from, PTSD from the trauma. I was like, what are you talking about? No, that was the most beautiful experience in my life. So it wasn't the actual physical experience for me that was traumatic. It was the coming back and learning how to be here, learning how to enjoy being here. I really didn't want to be here. I mean, I'll be honest with you, like I lived most of my life, like I never told anybody because I knew they would think I was going to commit suicide. But I was very aware that I didn't want to be here, like very acutely aware day to day that I literally, that's why I would say nobody gets it. And I couldn't relate to anybody. I literally did not want to be here. So going through many years of that, right? That's traumatic. I mean, I'm basically isolating myself, not connecting with anybody, and not wanting to be here. And when I did start telling people that, I only told a few people, and I would say it, very privately, but I would explain it and say, it's because where they're going is far better. Yeah. Like I'm jealous. Like when someone says someone died, my first thought is, oh, they're so lucky.
Yeah.
Right. So, because I did not want to be here. I didn't get it. I mean, I didn't get why somebody would want to be here. So
yeah. Carla says thank you. Yes, that was helpful.
Oh, good. Thanks. Thanks for the question.
And Graham says, also, did you feel that you did not fit here?
Big time. Yeah, I still have a hard time sometimes. I mean, now I feel much better because now as I'm sharing my story and I am connecting with other humans who I can relate to and who understand me and who feel the same way in terms of understanding the bigger picture and the energetic world and all that, it's much easier. But absolutely, I spent my whole life, and even the dating thing, I got to tell you, man, I intentionally, before COVID, I was like, okay, I'm going to intentionally date. And I have a shaman hairstylist, which I'm so blessed to have a shaman hairstylist. And he kind of coached me and said, okay, I want you to just learn more about yourself and, get a sense of what you really want. Like, what do you like in a man? Because I never thought about myself. Never. Every single thing I did in my life was for other people. Like, I had no sense of wanting to be happy myself. I know it's so hard, probably people understand that, but it's just, that was my life. So anyway, so I'd go on these dates and it was so fascinating to be like, wow, do I like this? Do I not like that? How did this make me feel? How did that make me feel? Because I've never thought about any of those things ever. So, and here I am, I'm 56 years old and I'm just going, do I like this? Does this feel good? But when you think about it, I think even though mine was because of an NDE, I think there's a lot of people that go through life kind of almost on autopilot or from the perspective of what they're supposed to do or what is expected of them, right? And they don't necessarily stop and really tune in. Is this something that feels good to me? Is this something that I like? Does this enhance my life? Does this open my heart? Does this bring me joy? Right? So I forget the original question. I hope I answered it. Sorry, Graham.
No, that was whether you fit
Yeah.
whether you fit in here.
Yeah, I definitely had a hard time with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and Graham says, you have multiple person because of the trauma you went through at the start, but do you feel integration a lot fuller now?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, since that soul retrieval experience, I mean, I literally feel like I'm just here. Like it's so strange because I guess some people would say a rebirth experience or whatever, but I do really feel like I'm just actually fully starting to live my life at 56. Which is so weird.
Graham says, a young'un, eh? And looking at you, you wouldn't say you were 56. So,
well, that's good. Thank you.
So you've done something right after all these years.
Yeah, thank God I've always been into sort of health and, physical well-being and all that stuff. So I've done, and for me, I think I look back and I was, as a dancer, like that was a fascinating thing when I think about it, because, that's the one time I was really happy, is when I was dancing. And think about that. What did it also do? Keep me in my body.
Yes.
Right. So, God, spirit, whatever, is not stupid, right? I mean,
No.
if I'm gonna be the person who had this experience, who has a hard time being in her body, you're gonna give me a gift that's gonna keep me in my body. And I remember, it's interesting now, that's bringing back another memory, when I was in my 30s and sort of, it was clear that my sort of dance career aspect of some things that I did was over, because I was getting older, and as a dancer, you don't last forever. And I never had that, like, I never had that drive that, like, dancers need to really make it. And I had some grief around, like, because I was constantly told how fat I was as a dancer too, constantly criticized, constantly told I was too fat. And I remember crying and saying, God, like, why did you give me the talent and not the body? And I came to the realization that my dance experience was I didn't realize at the time it was keeping me in my body, but it was about giving me experience on stage. Because when I was on stage, dancing for me was a way to express myself. It wasn't about I was the best technically. It wasn't about being the best. It was literally about emoting.
Yeah.
Like, that was the only way I knew how to emote to the world. I didn't know how to communicate what I was experiencing, because I hadn't processed my experience. And I also didn't connect with other humans, because I felt like an alien. So emoting and expressing, I mean, I would have people say, oh my God, I literally can't take my eyes off you when you're on the stage. And it's because I was so completely, fully embodied and expressing from my heart and my soul. And that was the only way I knew how to do that. So it was such a key factor for me in terms of, my development over the years to staying present in my body.
Yeah. And I think there's I mean I come across quite a few people with the work I do that feel they don't belong here, that they shouldn't be here in a physical body, not so much obviously near death experience, but they feel they just suddenly turned up here one day, and it's like, what the
what am I
hell?
doing here? yeah. And that's why I feel like, a lot of people feel that way, especially if you're a sensitive person, if you're an empath or HSP or whatever. I mean, I think that it's really hard to be here when there's all this craziness, and all this upheaval, and which there always is going to be. But yeah, I really feel that it's that's why when I think about creating heaven on earth for myself, it really is about, wait a second, I can't let that external, I can't let that stuff have an impact on my perspective and experience, right? I want to stay more fully in what I want the world to be, in the vision that I hold for the world that I want to live in, and stay connected with that inside of myself first, and then connect with others who vision and see and relate in the same way.
Yeah. And do you find that quite hard to do, or is it getting easier, or how do you do that?
It's been intentional this year, of course, because we've all gone online. I've been intentionally, like, joining Facebook groups that are like spiritual communities. I've joined some women helping women, entrepreneurs kind of groups or whatever. And so I'm very intentional with when I look at somebody and I kind of see their profile or I see their group, and I'm intentional with, I want to connect with those people that I can relate to them, right? Like I can feel a connection with them. And then this year too, a lot of that for me, even doing this, I promised myself that this was the year I had to start showing up. So after I became fully embodied in March, I was like, okay, now it's time to start showing up, get out there, put yourself out there. Cause I would never do that. Never. I didn't have the confidence. I didn't have I don't know, the wherewithal, even though I wasn't scared to, like, cause as you can see, I can talk forever, but it was more that I was so afraid of criticism, and I was so sensitive and still very childlike in my essence, that I really had to build my resiliency. And that's been a big thing this year too, is to be able to build that part of myself where if I am truly in my God self, if I am truly embodying the light, if I am truly embodying the heaven on earth experience, then nothing anybody can say or do can impact me in a negative way.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is interesting, because obviously as a dancer, you would have been criticized
Constantly. And it devastated me. That's part of the reason why I was so sensitive to it too. I was constantly ridiculed for how I looked. I was constantly told how fat I was, to the point where one day we were at my college. We did the National College Dance Festival is held every year, and the regionals were held at my school that year. And I had a piece of choreography that I submitted and made it in for review. And so you would do your piece, and then you would go up to the judges and get their feedback. And so when I sat down, the very first judge looked at me and said, well, clearly you're a talented choreographer, but you really don't think you're going to dance looking like that, do you? And I was so disgusted of hearing that all the time that I just said, nope, I sure don't. So could you just talk about my choreography? I was like, whatever. But yeah, so it was so devastating to my psyche to be criticized. And I grew up with, like I said, 3 brothers. I was constantly, my father was incredibly critical. My father called me fat all the time, like called me names. Like I just grew up with a lot of negative, abusive criticism, whatever. So I just was so hypersensitive. And then on top of it, I'm still in this emotional state of being almost a child from not having processed my NDE experience. So yeah, this has been a big year of building my resilience. And really, that's why, again, the heaven and earth thing for me is such a fascinating thing, because I think most people think that truly connecting with God or heaven or spirit is about going out, right? Like, I'm going to go up there and connect. And it's actually the opposite, right? It's like bringing it in, right? And truly embodying it. So, and that's been my experience in learning how to do that, and building that inner fortitude within myself to keep that light strong and powerful, and let it resonate and lead the way, and not let that other stuff take me down.
Yeah, and then that can be really difficult sometimes, and trying to stay spiritually aware but grounded as well, so you can function
Absolutely
here on earth. And it's brilliant that you're actually working that out now, and you're actually going and being able to help something. And actually, Graham mentioned a comment here, which is something we were talking about earlier, which was I compared shows in the armed forces and was a cook, and helped me stand in front of other spirituality. And that's what we're saying quite often. A lot of people on the spiritual path, on the spiritual journey, at some point have had some kind of theatrical, or where they've been in the spotlight thing, to be able to help them to speak out with, bring their message forward, to be able to assist and help other people.
Yeah. I think that's from everything I've learned about in terms of building business and your brand these days, we're heading into an age, we were in the information age, where it was about how educated you were and how many degrees you have. And now we're heading into this age of Aquarius, which part of that is about, we're going to be helping each other through, as we have our own experiences, right? Then we reach back to the people that are like ready to heal and move, who we can assist, we're going to assist. So it's like, one of my coaches said to me one time, you need to put yourself out there as, working with trauma, whatever. I'm like, no, I have no training in trauma. She's like, Donna, you lived your whole life like learning how to overcome trauma.
Exactly.
So it's like this interesting dynamic, because that's the other piece for me too, is related to the confidence. Is like, well, I don't have a degree in this and I don't have a degree in that. And like, your experiences are invaluable and you can help others through your experience, right? So yeah. Definitely.
Well, Graham says, seeing and hearing you today, you've passed your graduation into awareness of always being grounded. And Brenda says, your confidence is oozing out in this talk. So well done, Donna.
Oh, thank you. That means
my
so
mum.
much. Thank you. Oh, I love it. Thank you. I love your mom.
And to be quite truthful, and mum won't mind me saying this, a compliment from my mum is good.
All right. Oh, that's huge. Thank you.
And so when you're working with clients, how do you actually help them? What sort of things do you do with them?
So my one sort of baseline program is called SOAR, and it's Surrender, Open, Allow, and Reclaim. And it's based on what I was saying earlier about fascia release. So we just work with balls and we work on different areas of the body. And basically, I guide you through the process on the physical realm. But as I'm doing that, I'm talking to you about how to process through what's showing up. So if you're feeling pain, if you're having a memory, if your breathing all of a sudden gets intense, I'm coaching you through how to move through that. And then we also do, we tap into learning, does this feel like something physical? Does it feel like it's emotional? Ask your body, talk to your body. What is being held here? What is the message? And then at the end, we do a visualization meditation to sort of ground it all in and sort of bring it back together. And so the goal of that is not only physical release in terms of releasing pain or chronic tension or limitations in the body, it's also about what I talked about earlier, sort of having that time to go in so deep inside of yourself that you can start to really tune in to the divine intelligence. Because, like I tell people, I guide you, but I don't have the answers for you. And don't give your body over to somebody else. Don't let somebody else tell you what you should do with your body, right? Like, this is your body and you have the power to heal it. You have the power to hear the messages that it's sending you constantly, every second of every day. We just have to learn the tools how to do that. So that's a starting point of working with me. And then I do a lot of privates now too, where we do actual movement sessions. And so I have a pretty extensive background in Pilates and yoga and resistance stretching techniques and breath work and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of really work intuitively. So whatever, I ask the person to check in at the beginning, what's going on, what's showing up for you. We kind of start there and we just evolve. I have some people who are super fit and I have some people who have like 5 injuries and just finished surgery, so it just really depends. I really work based on, and my main gift is I see. So when I watch a body move, I can see all these subtle things that it's very common for people to say to me, no one's ever told me that before. No one's ever seen that before. And like, no, oh my God, that makes so much sense. And that's what I want. I want for them to get to that place where, wow, yeah, that does feel like my truth. That does feel like that's a good thing for me, right? Because to me, there's nothing worse than when people like, my physical therapist told me to do these 5 exercises, but I hate them and they hurt. I'm like, well, how are we going to get anywhere towards healing when your mindset is like, I hate them and it hurt, right? Because that's another big piece of my work is we review what's happening in your thoughts while you're moving, right? Yeah. I mean, part of my story too, when I was big time into fitness in my 20s, because I was always told how fat I was. So I went hardcore into like, I'm going to be super fit, all that masculine energy. My body fat was like 12%. I was totally ripped and lean, but I thought I was so fat. And I remember being on the Stairmaster one day, just beating the crap out of myself. You're so fat. You better go longer. You better do. And that's what a lot of people do, right? So it's like, coming from self-love when you're moving and using your body, as opposed to coming from self-hate and self-abuse, are two very different experiences, you know? So that's basically how I work.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, and as Graham says, yes, each finds their own answers, and that's the way most spiritual workers will work. Is we help you work things out yourself. We're just there to guide
Exactly.
and support you as you go along on your journey. So, as you know, I do guided meditations and angel card readings. So each week, I like to ask my guest whether they would like me to pull an oracle card or do a mini guided meditation for themselves and those who are watching. So, Donna, what would you like me to do?
A card, please.
Funny enough, I've got the cards in my hand.
we were vibing.
Yeah, everyone always asks for cards, and I love doing cards. Okay, so when I do the cards, I do the cards for what we need to know in the present, because like you, I believe that we should all be fully here in the present. So even though I work with past life stuff, when we heal from the past, we can actually be fully present. And when I work with people in the future, if they know and understand their future, then they could be fully present. So when I do the cards, it's what you need to know for your highest good at this moment in time. So what
Okay.
does Donna and everyone who's watching? Whoa.
Oh.
Perfect. And as always, the most perfect card that has come out. Journey by Moonlight, Believe in Magic.
Oh, I love that. Yay.
which is absolutely perfect with what we've been talking about. And that
Yes.
you really are on your right path with this, bringing the magic back. That's the thing that
Yeah.
we lose when we grow up, is
Yeah.
bringing that magic back into our life. And at this time now, we should be bringing the magic back into our lives, and literally going with that and being joyful and happy, and creating heaven on earth, basically.
Yeah, and for me, it's part of that too, is about what you focus on, right? Right. So it's like very easy right now to get very distracted by all the craziness. But I go for a walk. I look at like a little heart-shaped leaf on the ground, and I'm just like, oh, isn't that magical, right? Isn't that amazing? Look at nature's art, right? So that's going to give you a very different experience than, oh my God, what if I get sick? What if this? What if that? Right? It's like, just there's magic all around, right?
Exactly. And my mum says I agree with that. And Graham says, most importantly, don't forget it is solstice night tonight.
Yes.
It is, and that's why it was so ideal that this show actually was going out tonight, creating heaven on earth, because we are now in the with the age of Aquarius. We've now got the chance to create that heaven on earth and bring that community and joy and love back into the world, into our lives, into other people's lives.
Yeah, I agree.
So, Donna, do you have any
Yes.
insights or thoughts to leave our viewers?
Yeah, I think, this is a very common piece of advice, but I'm going to add a little nuance. So my advice is, please breathe, which everybody says, but when people used to say that to me, it would kind of irritate me, because like, well, duh, of course I'm breathing. So I'm going to suggest something for you, a little tool. So just take a few minutes each day and get present with your breathing from the perspective of the expansion and contraction quality of it. So I like to tell my clients that the bigger you can inhale, use that as a metaphor for taking in the goodness, juiciness, and love of life. So your ability to expand your breath is related to how much of that goodness you can take in. And then your ability to expel and let go of the air and exhale relates to your ability to let go of the things that you don't want to hold on to, that don't make you feel good, that aren't serving you and your highest good for your health and well-being. So just maybe try that. Just take a few big breaths and challenge yourself to like expand the possibilities of how much breath you can take in and how much you can take out. and visualize, what are you taking in with that big breath? Visualize love, visualize beauty, visualize connection to another human that you care about. And then when you exhale, visualize what's leaving and how much can you truly just get it out and let it go.
Perfect. Absolutely brilliant. So I hope everyone that you've enjoyed this and found it insightful, and the words of wisdom Donna has given you will help you further on your journey. So Donna, if people want to connect with you, how do they do that?
Yes, so on Facebook, you can do Orgasmic Movement business page, although I think I'm going to close that down because I'm not using it much. So you can just check me out, Donna Riley, on Facebook. Instagram, it's Orgasmic Movement. And then if you can personal message me in those two places, or you can do my email, which is orgasmicmovement@gmail.com.
And what I'll do is I'll put those links into the comments anyway. And are you able to work online, or do you have to see people in person?
No, I do 100% online right now. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And before we go, Graham says, I learned to deep breathe years ago, loved it.
Yes.
And that breathing is perfect. So everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this. And of course, if you have reached that crossroads in your life and need help finding your destiny and getting clear on your path, then I'd love to be that guide for you. Please feel free to reach out and connect with me, and we can arrange a free 20 to 30-minute video call to find out more about each other and how I can be of assistance to you on your journey. And of course, the Angel Wings membership community is open, where you get a chance to grow with the Ascended Masters, Archangels, Gods, Goddesses, Oracle cards, and other members to spread your wings and soar. And of course, if you sign up to my weekly newsletter, on my website, you get a free guided relaxation meditation to help you distress, and some other free gifts to help you. So thank you everyone for watching, and I'd like to invite you to share this video, as I'm sure there are more women and men who feel lost and want to get clear on destiny just like you. And if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, then please do subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of when the show goes live, and all the other guided meditations and things I actually put out on YouTube. And I look forward to seeing you all same time, same place next week. And thank you to everyone who's joined in with the show today. Thank you for your comments. It's been brilliant. And Donna, thank you so much for being on the show. And maybe we'll have you back again in the future.
Sounds great. I'd love it. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.